You're listening to Forging Fluidity with Savannah Wishart and Griffin Coombs, where we humbly navigate the idea of primal purpose, exploring conversations around physical, psychological, and spiritual well-being on the quest for a truly conscious and meaningful human experience. I'm Griffin, and my co-host is Savannah. She's a self-love expert and fine art photographer, and she uses life coaching and forest bathing photo sessions to create conscious containers for people to lean into vulnerability and explore their relationship with themselves.
And Griffin is a body awareness and breathing expert who uses targeted physical training and stress resilience coaching to help people become more physically capable and emotionally grounded.
We wish that mental health weren't such a controversial topic, but it's certainly understandable. Struggles in this arena are intense, and differing experiences yield differing opinions. In this passionate conversation, Savannah and I share our personal opinions as individuals who have dealt with our own challenges in this arena, and weaving in professional perspectives as well. Join us as we explore physiological health as the foundation for psychological health, weighing in on the diagnosis rate in children, unpacking the dopamine factory that is social media, and sharing simple and accessible strategies to create a sense of safety in the nervous system. We even take our first audience question, and it's a loaded one. So buckle up and get ready for some hot takes. Thanks for listening, and enjoy the episode.
Welcome back to our listeners, friends, and family, coming at you from Forging Fluidity with myself, Savannah Wishart, and my co-host, Griffin Coombs. We are going to be talking this week about mental health, kind of from our own experiences and also from Griffin's very layered background of physiology and the nervous system, and then some ways that I've connected dots recently also about the nervous system applied to my own journey of mental health. And we also have a question from a listener today. So got a lot of stuff to dive into this morning or this afternoon in Morocco or Europe.
Yes, I'm really excited for this one because I think it's something that's near and dear to both our hearts. We've both been through our own kind of mental health journeys. And I mean, one of the ways that I stumbled upon my education around the nervous system and stress and anxiety management, physiology to manage these things is, through my own experience, having grown up anxious, prone to letting stress get the best of me. And also with relationship struggles and self-worth struggles, and there's so much that goes under the radar of, let's say, official mental health diagnoses, where there are plenty of people who would be labeled, let's say, functional, but are still suffering in some way and don't necessarily have the same resources or the same, let's say, community to support them as somebody with a more concrete diagnosis. But then also on the other side of the spectrum, I know there's a lot of talk about overdiagnosing certain things these days. And so I think we have our own perspectives. We also have our own frustrations with how mental health is treated. So this might be a little controversial, but we're here for real talk, people. If you want a good, clean, buttoned up narrative around hairy, difficult topics, then this is not the podcast for you. And I'm assuming that you're here because you want to be here. We're happy to be here. So let's talk mental health.
Mm-hmm. Well, I wanted to say first that I like what you said about you can still have some level of mental health struggle, but you're still functional. And because of that, you might not be able to get the help that you need to get, or you might be overlooked as like, oh, well, you're fine. We'll look at it when it gets like 5 times worse. And that is a frustration that I have with anything in the current medical system is like, oh, well, like you're still able to get out of bed in the morning. So why don't you call us back when you can't get out of bed? And why do we need to get to that point? Why can't we address it first, focus on prevention. And also, I remember in Sweden when I was struggling with depression in the winter, and I would go to the naturopath, I'd go to these different doctors, I had blood tests, and they're like, well, everything just looks fine. Like, it's just the winter. And like, as long as you're doing okay, it's okay. And I was like, I don't want to be okay. I want to be a superhuman. Like, why can't, why can't you support me to be more than mediocre? So just to reflect back on that. Oh, and also like we talk about, oh, a functional alcoholic. Like that's a common, like a more common term, I think, in terms of functional sickness. And you're still an alcoholic. You're just you're just showing up every day in your life still. So
Right.
it doesn't negate the truth.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, functional means that it's not getting in the way of your daily obligations. What that really means is that it's not making you any less than what society expects of you, which is not very much, which is mediocrity at best. And so if you're still able to get up, drag yourself to your job, not kill somebody or not neglect your children if you have children or whatever, and stay alive, then like you're fine, you're functional. And we have a different standard for living and a different standard for health, a different standard for experience. So that's not good enough. And we've said that about a lot of things, right? Like a lot of industries. And I guess we also feel that way about the mental health industry. So call us negative Nancy's, but it's not good enough. My professional background before I moved into the wellness and the coaching space full time was education. And there is, I have a soft spot for kids. I don't have kids of my own. I don't know that I want kids of my own, but kids, I was a teacher because I love kids in some way and I really value learning. And what we learn as kids, you know, it's more than just ingraining knowledge. It really shapes our psychology and how we view the world. And it's really hard, as some of you who've quote unquote tried to do the work. No, it's really hard to change and manipulate your worldview that you had ingrained into you as a child. And so the more that we tell kids that something's wrong with them, when it's really what I would consider a natural response to an unnatural environment, the more we tell kids that, the more they are going to believe that there's no other solution than medications or even worse, self-victimization and relinquishing their power because they believe that they are a diagnosis and that diagnosis renders them helpless. So I've recently joined a community called Physiology First, and I went through their certification program. And it was really foundational in terms of the content. But I think what Physiology First excels in is communicating this to youth. And I'm really grateful for their existence, and I'm grateful to be in their corner and for them to be in my corner, because we need a force communicating the idea that your mental health problems should start, or addressing your mental health problems should start with addressing your physiology. And the idea is not that you're addressing your physiology is going to solve all your problems, but it's going to solve the foundational problem, because your brain is part of your body and there is something not in balance physiologically that is contributing to your mental health issues. It doesn't mean it's the only thing. There could be other things. There exist learning disorders. There exist depression, anxiety. There exist real mental health disorders, but not everybody who's diagnosed with them has them beyond a physiological imbalance. Some do, but certainly not all. So I just want to read a post on Physiology First's Instagram page. And if you want to follow them, they're just at Physiology First, all one word. And
we can link it in the show notes.
yeah, we will link it in the show notes. Thanks for reminding me. This is a functional podcast. They write all the time. But this is just a quick kind of tweet-like post, and it says, depression when sedentary is order, not disorder. Exhaustion when not sleeping is order, not disorder. Anxiety when overstimulated is order, not disordered. We need to stop labeling kids disordered for exhibiting healthy responses to unhealthy behaviors.
Ooh, I love that. And I love that there is this, I guess, is it an organization essentially?
Yeah.
That is focusing on kids, because I thought it was hard growing up as like MySpace started to become a thing. And then Facebook was at the beginning of coming a thing beyond just for college people. Like that was hard enough. I cannot imagine growing up in a world with TikTok and Instagram and all of this trending crap. Like I would never, one of the reasons why I would never want a kid is because I do not want to have to deal with that. Like, what a mess. Because not
Truly.
only you don't have to just be in charge of your child's experience, like, or you don't have control over your child's experience. Like, all of the influences of whatever kids at school are doing and everything. Like, I hear such horror stories from the parents I know about just behavior, and oh my gosh, I don't know. I can't.
Yeah, and I couldn't. One of the reasons I left education was because you're so connected through social media that all of the bullying behaviors that you and I might have experienced in real life were just pervasive. They were extending to every corner of kids' lives, because when they leave school, they're being made fun of in a group text or in a Snapchat photos or whatever. And it became, kids were showing up to school scared, ostracized, and depressed because of social situations that are happening every single second of every single day that they're tethered to on their phones. And as the administrator who was in charge of student culture and student behavior, it became a monster that I couldn't slay. It was bigger than me. It was bigger than the capacity that I had. And so I wouldn't say that I was already working and immersing myself in the world of health and wellness, so I didn't turn to this space as a response to that, but it just naturally feels better to be addressing this, at least in some capacity. Because, and if we take, just to give some examples, like if we take dopamine, for instance, it's a neurotransmitter that's responsible for drive and motivation. So, and it's a reward system. So dopamine has to do with seeking and reward. And when we get a reward, we get dopamine, and that makes us want to seek that same thing again. It's why sex feels good and food tastes good and all of these things we need for our survival, because the seeking of those things has to do with dopamine. Dopamine is a reward chemical. So now imagine if you have dopamine at your fingertips, and we are wired as animals not to have, we're wired to have inconsistent dopamine spikes for things that really matter to us. Now, when those things that matter they're taking a form that is more artificial, but still speaks to our core needs as humans. For example, connection. We would die without our tribe. As hunter-gatherers, we would die without connection. And so we are wired to receive a nice hit of dopamine when we get social approval. And now we have that at our fingertips through likes and comments and follows on social media. So you can imagine, if you are, especially if you're a child or a teenager who's in the prime of figuring out who you are socially and trying on all these different social hats and seeking lots of validation, and then every other minute you're pulling out your phone and you are getting a hit of dopamine from a like or a follow or whatever. And if you're not getting that hit, you are still seeking that hit because that's how you get it now. If your source of dopamine is your phone in your pocket, then you are going to seek it from there, and you are not going to seek it from places that are, let's say, healthier. Like pursuing a meaningful goal and then getting that goal. So when you
Yep.
have a kid who is not driven, who is not sleeping well because they're on their phone all night, who doesn't care about school, has no direction, and we call them lazy, or we say they might have a learning disability, but we haven't even checked their dopamine levels. We haven't even asked them about their health habits or their phone habits. We are missing a foundational piece of the equation, because what goes up must come down. So it's just like any other drug. The more you do it, the more dopamine hits you get, the more the withdrawal is on the other side. And then the more you need to satisfy you over time. So to be, let's say, lazy, unmotivated, undriven as a teenager in 2025 with TikTok at your fingertips is completely normal when you look at it through a physiological lens. And by not looking at it through a physiological lens, we are making kids, A, think that they are disordered, which is just not a good worldview. And we're also, for a lot of them, putting them on medications that they don't need and are giving them side effects that are unnecessary. So I'll get off my soapbox now, but this is the angle that I'm coming at this from as a former educator and current physiology coach. That's the way I'm seeing it.
Yeah, I appreciate your soapbox because I have a lot of opinions, but I don't have the education background. I just see what's going on and I connect the dots that are largely based on assumption plus my own experience with like childhood and teenage years and what I understand of psychology generally affecting people. So I appreciate that you actually have a tangible experience with education and children that you can reflect back what I assume to be true as being valid. So, um, kind of not necessarily on the topic of dopamine, but the idea of being at home and getting like all those likes at the fingertip too. On the other side of that, I talked about this recently with somebody, is like if you kind of doom scroll and if you have more negative associations with social media, or maybe you are a victim of bullying in those situations, like how do you feel safe in accessing your social media? Or even if you're maybe in the beginning of launching your business and it just like makes you super nervous every time you post and then you're afraid to open up your phone. So someone asks, like, how do you feel safe doing this? And the recommendation that I love was to devote a very specific space to looking at your social media. And so if you just are always like you're on the couch opening Instagram, you're in your bedroom, you're in the bathroom, like your whole space becomes an invitation to invite hundreds or thousands or hundreds of thousands of people in, potentially judging and critiquing you. And so none of your space is safe because you're pulling them in. And so even when I have a text I need to send or an email and it feels like scary because maybe it's a pitch proposal or an estimate for a shoot or something, like, and I'm worried about what the response is going to be, I'll go for a walk and I'll send a text like up on a hill somewhere, or I'll take myself to a coffee shop and I'll do the email there. And then that keeps my space clean. So even though I might receive the text or the email back when I'm at home, somehow taking myself out of the home environment to initiate it, like it really helps to create that sense of safety in myself. So I think that's kind of a cool exercise to, I don't know, bring a sense of safety in an insane online world that we don't have control of.
Absolutely. And I also think that can work, also to avoid the dopamine overload. So let's say you are addicted to TikTok or Instagram, and the doom scrolling is it's another dopamine seeking, because every time you find something entertaining, it's like it's a reward. And so it becomes, then you get withdrawal, and then it's like another one, another one, another one. And before you know it, you've lost 2 hours because you're seeking something that you're never really going to get. But you don't know that you're really not going to get it. Just like an alcoholic probably knows consciously that the alcohol is ruining their life, but their brain and their body are desiring the refuel of dopamine that they get from that seeking that reward that they're just accustomed to. So if that's your
Just a
problem,
constant IV drip in a way.
yes, yeah, exactly. And so if that's your problem, designating a sacred space for social media could be helpful, and that it may, depending on how disciplined you are, may stop you from taking out your phone and doom scrolling in other locations. Like, it adds some friction to the activity. If you have to be in this room, in this corner of this room, to be able to go on TikTok, then it makes it harder for it to pervade your life, and for you to get addicted to the doom scrolling if you're out walking or in the kitchen or whatever. It's not the solution for everybody, but it could be a tool that works both ways.
Yeah. It could be a baby step, at least.
Sure.
To bring awareness, because awareness is the first step. So to catch yourself in those moments and then be like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be doing this in the corner, sitting with my shoulders slumped in my timeout cap. What is it? A dunce cap?
Yeah. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a counselor. I'm not a mental health professional. But when you start to look at physiology, which is my background, when you start to look at it as the foundation of mental health, then you have this whole other layer. So imagine if kids just knew how to regulate themselves physiologically, and then the counselors, the therapists, the psychiatrists were seeing the ones who truly are disordered and need that kind of help. But you'd get a whole subset of children and adults who learn how to breathe functionally, are exercising regularly, are eating correctly for their bodies, and who are completely removed from the at-risk or in-need group when it comes to mental health services psychologically. But the problem is nobody connects them. Like, people live in their own separate boxes as though physiology is separate from psychology, which is bonkers. As we said before, the brain is part of your body. How can you not connect exercise, nutrition, and breathing to the state of your mental health? It makes absolute no sense. I want to actually read one more little slide post from the Physiology First account, and then I won't do any more reading. But I'll tell you why, because there are a lot of people who would, if I say this, who would say, well, show me the data. Show me the data that suggests that physiology is blah, blah, blah. And, there are people who identify with the status quo, right? Like, they built a nice identity around it, or maybe their professions exist because of the status quo. So I understand there's resistance to other ways of thinking, but this is not the claim that the onus is not on me to provide evidence. So I'm going to read this little slide from Physiology First. It says, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. This is true. But in an extremely sick society, it's hard to tell which claims are extraordinary. Claim: if kids are unhealthy, they should feel healthy. If they don't, they have a disorder. This is an extraordinary claim. It is the claim being made by those who label, diagnose, and medicate millions of sedentary, exhausted, screen-addicted kids for feeling like crap. Less than 1/4 of kids meet the minimum physical activity requirements for mental and physical health. Why would anyone assume that depression and anxiety in this scenario is due to a psychiatric disorder? There are many industries that profit from the pathology of physiology. Education disrupts these industries entirely. The physiologically literate parent understands that health isn't something you have, it's something you do. The fact that the health is preferable to illness when given the choice is not an extraordinary claim, it's common sense. The fact that declining health makes you feel like crap is not an extraordinary claim, it's common sense. The fact that teaching kids how to improve their health leads to the improved health of kids is not an extraordinary claim, it's common sense. The extraordinary claim is that a sedentary, overstimulated, screen-addicted lifestyle should produce anything other than depressed and anxious kids. It should require extraordinary evidence before medicating instead of educating a generation. I'm gonna just read that slide again because that's the crux of all of this for me. The extraordinary claim is that a sedentary, overstimulated, screen-addicted lifestyle should produce anything other than depressed and anxious kids. It should require extraordinary evidence before medicating instead of educating a generation.
Oh man, this makes me so mad.
And I hope it's making our listeners mad too, because it should make us mad. It is ridiculous.
It makes me feel like the crazy person. When we talked about this before recording, like the normal thing right now is to be a diagnosed sick person. That is the status quo. And to be someone that is not a diagnostic person, that is really the outlier right now. And so now it's like, I feel crazy for being so passionate about this. And it's like, because that is the outlier. Oh, man.
Yeah.
And I think I just want to emphasize that I come from exactly this background of a misdiagnosis in my teenage years. I was put on antidepressants as a teenager, and you know what I was doing? I was on MySpace like 3 a.m. Like I was not living a healthy lifestyle. I was not, and did the doctors tell me to eat better or to exercise? Like I still played volleyball and maybe that's it. I don't know. I did well, then I stopped, I guess. So because I became emo. You can't play volleyball when you're emo. But yeah, so it's just like I know I've been there, and because of that, like that breach of trust from medical providers, I stopped going to doctors. I stopped trusting the Western medical system, and for good reason, like, which has been proven multiple times in the last 5 years as well. So I just want to emphasize that because I'm not just coming at it from like, oh yeah, my life has always been perfectly fine, and this is what I think about mental health and whatever. Like you and I both have been in our own little hells, and I still struggle with depression and anxiety. And I also never have let that become my identity. And that is a huge frustration of mine, is the self-victimization that people take on of, oh, I'm just sensitive. I'm just lazy. I have ADHD, so I can't focus on you because I need to be scrolling through my phone while I'm reading a book, while I'm watching TV. And it's like, no, you're choosing to do those things. Like that is a choice. And okay, I will calm down and let you.
No,
You were
no
going to say
calming down.
something.
No calming down. This is for getting riled up. That's what this is for.
There's just, it's, I heard someone say recently, like, the world is designed right now to make the default way of being that of whatever is to have ADHD. That is the world that we live in. So you claiming that you have ADHD doesn't make you special. If everyone has ADHD, no one has ADHD. And that's the situation right now. Like you are responsible for figuring out how to navigate a world that is making everybody act like this. You can have self-control, you can self-regulate, you can calm your energy down. You don't have to be a freaking frazzled beam of lightning bouncing all over the place.
Tell us how you really
Anyway,
feel. I love this. Well, so I think the question for those people is like, do you want to be healthy or do you want to be normal? Because they're not the same anymore. It is not normal to be healthy. And for some people, I think the honest answer might be, I want to be normal. Why? Because fitting in
safe.
is, yeah, it's safe, and it speaks to a deep evolutionary need of ours to be accepted by the crowd. So especially if those close to you are, they don't care about health, or they are really identified with the narrative that it's completely fine and healthy to have however many, one in four, 1 in 5 children diagnosed with a mental health disorder, that's just okay, and there's no uh imbalance causing that, or there's no reason for it. It's just the way the world is. Like some people have mental health disorders and others don't. And if you're subscribed to that narrative, or the people around you are, like, it's going to be really hard to be the one black sheep who's like, "Mm, no." And so I've been here too, because my background, what is funny?
I was like, we are the black sheep. We are
Yes, we
two
are.
black
Yeah.
sheep.
Yes.
Talking,
Yes.
yeah, it is hard.
Yeah.
It's lonely when you choose to stray from the pack. It's that, I
Yes.
don't know, like, I don't think we're romanticizing or glamorizing the lone wolf mentality, but like, it is like, there are sacrifices to be made. Like, and even of like, I don't drink. So if you choose to stop drinking, then I mean, you can still go have kombucha or sparkling water or something. But like, I don't know. I don't go out to bars. My social activities are very different from a lot of people's. And that puts me in a much smaller category of people that I'm going to connect with. And
Yes.
that's a little bit of a tangent, but
Well, no, it's actually a great point, because social connection is something that we need to be healthy too. So you've
mhm.
got three options. You can go with the crowd and ignore health, ignore well-being, and just accept victimization and diagnoses, and the just the current state of the status quo. Or you can go lone wolf and completely branch off from that and go it alone. Or you can branch off from that, but intentionally find people who share your values or your lifestyle and that you do connect with. Now, I don't even know where I am right now. I'm more lone wolf, like branched off completely. And part of it
Mhm.
is I live in a place where this concept is just not here yet, in North Africa. And yeah, I mean, there could be a million reasons, but it's hard to find people who share, at least in my immediate physical vicinity, who share my certain commitment to certain things about lifestyle. And I still think it's worthwhile to try and find them, and I'm working on it, but it's not easy. So I've also been in a place where I've just said, fuck it. I'm just gonna drink, or I'm just gonna not care about this or whatever, because the reward that I was getting from social acceptance, and not even acceptance, like the actual interacting with people, being social, was better for me, or felt better at the time, than taking better care of myself but being lonely. And so I do think in a perfect world, you're going to do both, but it just takes work to find your people. And I don't necessarily, I'm not doing a great job at that right now. So it's like not coming at anybody from a place of judgment, where it's just like, oh, me and my high horse, where I, you know, I'm a lone wolf because I have values around health. It's like, it's probably just as bad to be a lone wolf without any connection at all. So it's just the real challenge is navigating them both and staying true to your values and your what you know to be true, and also working hard to find other people that really connect to that.
Yeah, and I think also um I mean with taking a stand against the status quo and leaning more toward, maybe not more toward the destination of the lone wolf, but trying to find that balance, like you do have to be comfortable with being alone as well. And if you are hiding behind an abundant layering of mental health diagnosis, like you have to start to peel that back and question like who you actually are at the core when you take away all those labels. Because this is one of the things too that drives me crazy a little bit with people is when and it's not just mental health stuff, but it's like, oh, I'm a doctor, I'm a wife, I don't know, I'm a dad, I'm a mom, I'm a whatever, like all of these identities. I'm like, even like I'm a man or I'm a woman, like if people come to me with those labels before they actually come to me with a sense of themselves, I have a really hard time with it because, like, okay, cool. That's like who you are on the outside and what you do and whatever. But who are you? Like, when you take away all that external labeling. And this is another thing, we're getting even more controversial. This is a problem I have with forced pronouns. Like, I led a yoga workshop like a month and a half ago, and I live in a place where usually every group setting you're supposed to say your pronouns, and I forgot, and that just wasn't part of the thing. And at the end of it, I was writing about how it went, just reflecting on it, and I realized like, oh, there was one man in the class, and I didn't even realize it. Like it was like 10 women and a man, and that did not register at all because I think of myself like I'm gender blind. Like I see people, I don't see their gender. And yet, this forced declaration of pronouns, it forces you to immediately see someone's gender before you see them as a person. And I don't like that. It's kind of like, hey, I'm black. And it's like, hey, I'm white. Like, okay, cool. Now I see your race before I see you as a person. And
Yeah.
that is, I don't want, it just drives me crazy because when you get caught up in these labels of identity as well, then do you actually know like who you are and what your core values are? And like, and I'm not saying that like, oh, pronouns are horrible. And I see the purpose of them and where they came from having a purpose. But there is also this other reality to it. And I hope that our listeners can see that both of those can exist. Like it's not one or the other, but there's both sides of it.
Yes. Two things can be true at once. There was I was watching this show called Love on the Spectrum about
Oh,
it's
I've
like a
heard of this.
it's good. It's really good. It's yeah, a documentary series on people on the autism spectrum dating, trying to find love. And there was one woman who was talking to her friend, and her friend was like, "Did you bring up your diagnosis?" And she said, "No." And she said, "Don't you think that's like kind of relevant information?" And she's like, "No, I don't want it to come up unless it has to come up. Like, I'm not gonna just introduce myself and say, 'Hi, I have autism.' But if my autism manifests in some way that leads to a discussion about it, that's how I want them to find out, because I don't want to, exactly what you said. I don't want them to think of me as somebody with autism when they don't have to be thinking about that." And
Hmm.
it got me thinking, like, if let's say I'm on a dating show and I'm going to date somebody who's on the autism spectrum. And let's say it's not going to work out. I can't. Is it because of the idea that they have autism? Or is it because there were a lot of behaviors that don't line up with what I'm looking for in a partner? And maybe some of those behaviors are symptoms of autism spectrum disorder. Maybe some of them aren't. But that second one, the latter, is how we all should be determining whether or not dating or a relationship is going to work out. And so if you have a diagnosis, how do you really know? Like, I feel like a lot of people, if it's not going to work out, they're really going to cut it off because, at least in part, of the idea that they have autism. Whereas, like, what if you dated somebody with autism and they never told you?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like sometimes, depending on the person or the situation, you would figure it out, and other times you might not, you know?
Yeah.
And it might be 6 months down the road, and you're like, I feel like you're not, I feel like you're not looking at me when I'm talking to you, and I don't feel listened to. And maybe that's when they're
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, I actually am diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. And you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Instead of, hi, nice to meet you, I have autism. And then you're just thinking about how all the reasons it might not work because you're scared of that or it's
Mm-hmm.
uncertain or whatever. So anyway, it's a tangent, but just another example of how just showing up with your label as the first thing you introduce yourself with is just, it's unnecessary, and it puts everything else about you that you might want people focusing on in the background. It's unnecessary.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And on that note as well, I think then once you're presented with information of, okay, like if there's the eye contact issue and then you find out, then you have kind of a fork in the road, which really is true for any kind of relationship or dating, I think, because you start to collect things with an experience with someone that you don't particularly love. And you can have conversations about it and figure out, like, why is this coming up? Is it a diagnosis? Is it a trigger? Is it a wound? Like, whatever it is. And then that fork is going to be, okay, can I excuse this behavior? And under that excuse, it could be building resentment and it still is not sitting right with you. Or does it give context and then you're able to accept it and move forward? And you're like, okay, yes, I can work with this. I can deal with this. I can live with this. This maybe doesn't go against a need that I have, but maybe it's like, maybe I want to have eye contact with someone and maybe this isn't a need. And so I can move on. I can accept them as it is. Or is there actually an internal need that I need eye contact? And so I choose that fork of brushing it under the rug. And it's like, okay, I'm excusing away this gut feeling or this just feeling of like, this isn't working for me. And it's not necessarily a judgment about them having autism or whatever the thing is that we're talking about, but it's just like, this isn't what I want. And that's okay. It doesn't have to be like, just because you don't want it doesn't mean that you're prejudiced against it. It's just like not aligned with what you need, what you want. And that's okay. That also requires knowing yourself enough to know what you want.
Yes, exactly. And so I think that if you don't make your label the most important thing in the world, if it manifests in whatever situation, if it manifests, like if we go back to the pronouns, it's the same thing. Like in that yoga class, if somebody is in danger of being misgendered or is misgendered, that, they have an opportunity at that point to make their pronouns known. But I don't know
Mm-hmm.
that you need to preemptively do that with everybody. And I know that's a hot topic, and I know a lot of people want to crucify me for that probably, but it's just it's the same thing. It's like, I mean, imagine if you started a class or introduced yourself and you named every external thing you identified with. Like, hi, my name's Griffin. I'm a man and I am short. I am an American and also a Bostonian, and also I'm a brother, and also I am a son. and also I'm a friend and a partner, and also I'm a martial artist, and also I'm a coach, and also I'm a fitness enthusiast. Like it's like, where does it end? Why are your pronouns or your race or your diagnosis the thing you're going to lead with, but you're not going to lead with mother, daughter, son, brother,
Mhm.
what you do for work or whatever. It's just, it's doesn't make sense how much weight people are giving to these parts of their identity. That's what I'm saying.
Yep. Yep. And I feel very refreshed when I meet someone and like I know kind of what they do for work, but that doesn't take over the conversation. And I
Sure.
feel it's kind of weird for me because a lot of what I talk about with people is my work, which I think is because like I love it and it's creative and it's interesting and I don't know, I consider everything that I do to be work, really, like
Mm.
working out me is work and the adventures are work because they fuel the stories. And so I'll meet someone and their purpose, maybe their core purpose, either they're still figuring out and or it's also not directly connected to their finances and their source of income and their job. And they are this whole other person outside of it. And that almost it makes it easier to be like, okay, well, who are you? And getting to know you because there aren't all of these pre, I don't know, um, little asterisks next to their name of like, yeah, their work and their all the labels. So it kind of it's a blank slate, I suppose, in a way.
Yes, exactly. So if we can encourage people not to identify with a diagnosis, if we bring it back to mental health, then it frees them up to explore physiology. It frees them up to explore how they can be healthier in general. Whether that gets rid of their diagnosis or not, or quote unquote heals them or cures them, is beside the point. It's, I want to feel better. I want to be a better, healthier, more connected, present, more energetic version of myself. And your own opinion about yourself, if you're identifying with your diagnosis, can get in the way of that. So it just, people aren't going to, if they don't want to believe something, they're not going to believe it and they're not going to try it. So it takes that blank slate mentality to be like, okay, you know what? Maybe I'm breathing through my mouth 24/7. Maybe if I learn how to breathe through my nose and slow my breathing and balance my blood gases and oxygenate my brain better, I might feel better. I might have more energy. I might be in a better mood. I might have more attention span, instead of like, yeah, it doesn't work for me because I have ADHD. So doctor said so.
Hmm.
So nothing we can do.
Or I have high blood pressure because I'm a stressed person. Like,
Right.
but you could not be stressed. Like,
Right.
what about
You
that?
could try that.
And I
Yeah.
think like I think that one of the hurdles that we all have to move past is people need to see that life could be different. Like if that identity is so strong, like I'm a stressed person, I'm an anxious person, then they don't even realize that it could be different. And I do like to reflect back to people like what if you don't have to be a stressed person? What if you could figure out how to regulate that stress and manage it? And you have to believe that it's possible. And I mean, if you're listening to this and you identify that way, like what if maybe just be playful and curious, like what if you lived in a world where it was not so accepting of this and you had to actually like you were forced into some kind of action to address it and to try to do what you could to make it better. Like what if the labels all stopped existing and you were like, well, I don't have the label to fall back on of I don't know, having whatever diagnosis. So I actually have to meditate every day and I have to try to get better. What if you actually took away all of your resources that were allowing you to stay in this identity and supported it. And we're like, yeah, you have ADHD, da, 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 and it kept peppering you. And what if it all gets erased? I'm kind of repeating myself now. And then you're just like, well, I have to learn how to be calm because I don't have medicine anymore. I don't have a doctor anymore. I have to actually like take the initiative and take responsibility for my physiology, my mind, my emotional health, my communication skills, and my physical health.
Bingo. So this sounds like the common theme there is like we have compassion, and society should have compassion for those who try to solve problems and can't on their own, like the people who really have true psychological hurdles. But we maybe, this is maybe we should have less compassion, or at least a different type of compassion for those who haven't even tried in the first place to solve the problem, instead of slapping a diagnosis on them and letting them identify with it. And that's kids and adults, but especially kids, because they don't know any better. So,
Mm-hmm.
so
And we
that's,
do like, if we are leaning toward being in the more, I don't know what the word is, I don't know, progressive kind of thinking, and we are seeing health in this holistic lens, we do also have the responsibility not just to live as an example, but to do our best to as gently as possible, pull people to a higher standard and to expect more of them. So, like, instead of being an enabler, we are helping people in our own ways with our own boundaries to rise up to that higher standard and to demand more of them as well.
bingo. That's it. That's it. I'm
Yep.
depressed. Have you tried walking? Like, have you tried moving your body at all in any way whatsoever? No. Okay. Why don't we start there? Let's just see what effect that has on your mood. That type of vibe. No shaming. We're not shaming. I know we're heated about this, ladies and gentlemen, but we're not shaming or judging anybody. It's just, God damn it. Want, we want better for everybody. And, yeah.
Ew.
So yeah, that
Yep.
kind of vibe. Not, well, what an idiot. You're depressed because you're fat and lazy. No, it's like, okay, let's try that. Like, a lot of people don't understand it's linked. It is linked. So if you were one of those people, now you're not. Knowledge is power. Now you know your physiology affects your psychology. So if you are not feeling great and you don't do anything at all with your body, seriously go for a walk. Go for 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter. Go for 30
And
if
then
you can.
once you go, yep. And once you go for a walk, go for a ruck.
Put
So
one
I
of
do love my
Savannah's.
rucking.
Yeah, you do.
Yes.
Put one of your cool backpacks on with a weight plate in it. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe later. But
And then yeah. But if you want the body of your dreams, go rucking eventually. Once you've dialed the walking.
Yep.
Before we sign off, I do want to address our listener question. And then I also want to just give like a little connector to the mental health and the physiology and what I've been kind of connecting dots with lately, because, like for over a decade and a half, I guess, I had a depression diagnosis, and then depression and anxiety go together. And for a long time, I've recognized that my stress response, so for anyone that doesn't know this, when you get stressed, your nervous system will go into flight, fight, freeze, or fawn. And for the longest time, I thought, oh, like I have a flight response, because especially when I was living in Sweden, I would just fly away. Like I would just get on a plane and leave. And so that was my way to manage stress, I came to realize, and also like body dissociation, just leaving the body. And that's why I really like Shibari, because it's like a hug that pulls you in. And then on the other side of that, I would get depressed. And more recently, I started to realize that I'm more likely, what likely is happening is that I'm going into a freeze response. So if I don't have the ability to fly away at that moment, I'm maybe not getting depressed or it's showing up as depression, but my nervous system goes into freeze instead. And so I kind of started to notice this because there's been a couple scenarios where I'd be around people and I would just notice my behavior change. Like I would stop looking people in the eyes. I would just kind of like I would stop really participating in conversations and I would just like feel myself withdrawing and shutting down. And I just like, I couldn't make eye contact. Like it was almost painful to try to make eye contact with someone. And I just wouldn't engage anymore. And I was like, oh, I think this is a freeze response. This is so
Mm.
interesting. So it's been cool to connect the dots in that way because now I've gotten some tools to like tools are power. Awareness is power. Recognizing, oh, I'm not depressed. There are some things I can do. So one of them is to just like, and I think this is easy for a lot of people to get into the freeze response because we're staring at a screen a lot of the day. So one thing you
Yes.
can do is just like open your eyes, look up, rotate your eyes like too far to the left, far to the right, down, and just like expand your worldview. And to me, that kind of calms me down and gets me out of that freeze mode. So,
Yes. Do you want to know why?
yeah, please tell us.
When you go into fight or flight, when your nervous system kicks on, it's called the sympathetic branch. That's the fight or flight branch. It has all these physiological phenomena that go with it, like your heart rate increases, blood pressure increases, breathing rate, that blood goes away from digestion, and goes to the extremities to prepare you to fight or flight. And so you get all these changes. One of those changes is tunnel vision so that you're able to focus
Mhm.
on the threat. And so we can reverse engineer these things and this is basically the crux of the work that I do for stress, anxiety, nervous system regulation is take those physiological things that happen, change them, and manipulate those things, bringing them back to balance. So then that helps bring your mind back to balance as well. So if you are stressed and it starts to make your breathing rate increase, then slowing your breathing can signal to the brain that you're no longer stressed. So it's the same with the eyes. If you're stressed and the natural response is tunnel vision, then if you make yourself increase your peripheral vision and look all around, panoramic views, then you are signaling to your brain you're in a place where you don't have to focus on a threat. So that is a great practice.
Perfect. Thank you for explaining that.
I love that
Um,
you use that. I actually don't use that one enough, and I'm going to start because it's great, and I forgot about it. So thank you.
it is great. Yeah. Well, I guess we can dive into our audience question,
All
which
right.
this person asked that, or she said that she started working out. Like, I think she was pretty sedentary before the new year. She started working out, wanted to make these healthy changes, but every time she works out, she has to lay on the couch for like 2 hours and gets severely depressed to the point of almost feeling suicidal. And I had two theories that I'll go into, and then I'll ask what you think. I did share a couple tips with them, and I got good feedback. So I think that it worked pretty well. So my first theory is that when I go on a giant backcountry adventure, like if it's split boarding or biking, or it's just a very physically intensive thing for like a full day or 2 days, like when I come back home, I crash into feeling pretty low and depressed for a day or two. And what I've kind of figured out that what this is probably a dopamine crash. So I've been in this big dopamine high for this adventure and I come back to just like a normal daily life. So my theory is that if working out is such a new thing for this person, then it might feel like climbing a mountain for a day. Like even if it's not. And so that could be that person's version of that big dopamine crash. Um, the second thought that I had with it is that for some reason, whether related to dopamine or not, the nervous system doesn't feel safe with this activity. And so she needs to give herself some safety signals to remind the nervous system that it's safe. And so one of the things was the eye exercise. And then another thing that I suggested was a heel drop exercise. So basically what you're going to do for this is you'll be standing with your feet probably hip width apart, and then you're going to slowly come up on your toes, and then you're just going to drop your heels down. And you can figure out how hard you want to drop it. Like if you're sensitive, you might want it to be pretty light. But if you just really want to just jar your body, then just like slam the heels down and repeat it and kind of just keep breathing. Like breathe slowly. Don't get yourself like hyperventilated or anxious. But that was another cue that I had given her to just like to give the physiological cue that it's safe to be in her body after this exhausting activity. So I would love to know what you think about either of those things or what your own take on it is. And I will say, neither of us are a doctor or a psychologist or
Yeah.
a therapist. So just take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, definitely not medical advice. And I think even if you were a medical professional or mental health professional, it's still speculation, right, at this point. Like, I don't think with this, we can say, anybody could really say with this much information definitively why this is happening. But I think that those are two plausible ideas. It could also just be if her nervous system is new to exercise, or she overdid it with exercise, then the central nervous system could just be completely fried, which is the brain and the spinal cord, the part of the nervous system that you control things with, like your conscious activity of like exercising. So like the harder that is, the more coordination it takes, or the more strength it takes, or the more intense it is, her central nervous system could just be totally fried. And or her autonomic nervous system, which is what we've been talking about, the fight or flight, rest or digest, could have been it could have been so uncomfortable, and exercise could have pushed her so far into sympathetic drive that she had what's called parasympathetic rebound effect. So when you get so pushed into, it's almost like it's the freeze response, basically. It's like when you are so overwhelmed with high stress or high nervous system arousal that you bounce back and you go way low in parasympathetic, you just shut down. And so it could have been a rebound effect. And in terms of the suicidal thoughts, I'm not sure. There's a popular theory called polyvagal theory, a guy named Stephen Porges. So you've got the sympathetic branch, which we talked about as fight or flight, high nervous system arousal. And then when it's lower, you've got, like, in this frame of reference, in this model, you have dorsal vagal and ventral vagal. Vagal refers to the vagus nerve, which is largely responsible for turning on the parasympathetic nervous system and bringing us back down regulating us. So dorsal vagal and ventral vagal, it's like this theory that there's two branches of the vagus nerve, and ventral would be the one in the front, and that one is like kind of where you want to be living, according to polyvagal theory, where you are relaxed, but you're still primed for social connection. It's safety in the nervous system. Whereas dorsal vagal would be too downregulated and shut down. And that's where you're fatigued, you're sluggish, you're depressed, you're hypo-aroused. And so it could be, if you look at it through polyvagal theory, which definitely has its holes in it, it is not confirmed as fact at all. But if you just look at it through that lens, it could be that exercise was way too arousing for her in terms of the nervous system, and just bumped her into dorsal vagal shutdown.
Okay.
Speculation, but could be.
Yeah. What would you recommend as an action item from that speculation?
slow down your approach to exercise. And I love to use nasal breathing as your guide there. So if you are having that response to exercise, your nervous system definitely does not need super high intensity stuff at this time. And so one of the ways you can keep yourself in the realm of moderate exercise is to only exercise as hard as you keep your mouth closed. So as soon as you feel the need to breathe through your mouth, you're going too hard, bring it back down. That might be power walking, or it might be very light weightlifting or whatever it is, but use your nose as your guide. You will adapt nasal breathing and you'll be able to do more with your mouth closed over time, but that will ensure that you adapt gradually and that you're not jumping into exercise that is frying your nervous system.
Okay, great. And I mean, that can be applied to any of us. So not just if you're struggling with such a deep dip after exercise, but even like I haven't been on a bike ride in a while because it's cold right now. But when I've when I've been figuring out what my pace is when I'm not on group rides, that is kind of my indicator that I practice of, can I do this whole climb through my nostrils? No, not yet. But I'm
you'll
getting
get there.
there. I will get there. You don't get there if you don't try.
Yes. Just like mental health. You don't get there if you don't try, right? You just accept your diagnosis and sit back. But if you try breathing better, you try exercising, you take advantage of areas of opportunity, and then it still sucks, let's, be my guest. But
Yep.
until you've looked at the foundation, the physiology, like you keep your mind open to the possibility of having a more enjoyable experience. And that's that.
Life could be better.
It certainly could. So if you're listening to this, what do you think? Do you think that a mental diagnosis is final? Or do you think that there's a spectrum of psychophysiological stuff that we can work on and think of it? Do you want to kill us after listening to our take on pronouns, mental health diagnoses, victimization, or do you agree? Let us know. Reach out to us on Instagram. I am the North Star Body. Savannah is Primal Revolutions. And until next time.
Until next time.